I'm Dave Denton. I'm here to try and help you improve your opportunities via G-Cloud. So why am I here? I worked on a G-Cloud program with Peter. We started on the same day and we finished the same day, and we helped hundreds of buyers and suppliers understand what G-Cloud is and how to make best use of it. I've also been in IT for far too long, but during that time I've been in the public sector and the private sector, so when I think of things, I think of it from both perspectives. I now assist people, buyers and suppliers, understand what we're talking about today, but in far greater detail in relation to what they do. And I'm also a member of the UK Eurocloud board as their G-Cloud representative, which I share with Peter. And they've released a G-Cloud manifesto with the intent of helping their members with this very information that we'll give you. Now, I've got to go through this quickly today because I'm going to go into some detail and try and give you something real tangible and useful that you can think about with your G-Cloud offerings. 3 key things for me in order to succeed. This is the most important one. Know and understand G-Cloud. We've talked about it today. I normally spend a lot of time explaining this specifically to suppliers who sometimes think, here are my services, I don't need to know what the buy side is. But it's really important. If you don't understand its vision, its principles, the behavioral change behind it, then unfortunately it's going to be really hard for you to pitch in the way that the public sector needs. The second key step is to make it simpler for buyers, help them. We've heard a little bit about what that means, but I'm going to try and go into more detail for you. Before we start, some thoughts about the buyers. We've heard it before, but there's a spectrum of buyers. Yeah? They've got all sorts of different knowledge, all sorts of different viewpoints. 32,000 plus organizations, IT specialists, security specialists, project teams, business users, procurement specialists. We'll be talking to them through our information that we provide to them. How do we consider them? When do we consider them? It's really important we think about it. Peter said it earlier. Don't assume they know everything. They don't. They might not know what G-Cloud is, how to buy legally through it. They might not know what services they need or what they have to do or even consider when moving to those services. And they can also find you through different routes. Yes, they have to buy through the digital marketplace to find the G-Cloud offerings, but we've heard it before, you need to think about how everything else you do is joined up to what this means. Because if you find them, you develop a lead yourself, and you want them to buy through G-Cloud, you're still going up against everybody else. So if your services aren't the best of the bunch, you could find that lead, develop it, and lose it during the G-Cloud procurement. So what tools do you have to engage with people? Well, you have your digital marketplace details that you submit. You've got the service name, but you've got a 50-word description of that service. It's got to be punchy. You've got 10 features. You've got 10 benefits. You've also answered the questions and the filter selections. Okay, so this is the information that I consider to be finding me and long listing me. It's got to be really quick. You need to pay attention to me. Then you've got your submitted documents, service definition, terms and conditions, rate cards, the pricing document, very important. But you've also got 2 additional documents. Now, that's all you've got. This is the stuff that gets you shortlisted and selected. You've got to put a lot of thought into that. You've got to influence people because they can buy without talking to you. They can throw you in the bin without talking to you. They can engage with you all the way through if they want to. You said earlier about how can they engage. They can hold sessions at the end to say, well, you tell me about what you've got. Here's a scenario I've got. Respond to it. There are different ways of engaging with you at the end depending on what their needs are. But you've had to have thought about that. Getting in the room, you might not get that opportunity. This is what the thought needs to go into this. So how do you consider all of these people? Sometimes you might have target organizations. It might be large central government departments. It might be local authority. It may even be down at primary school and GP practices. If you have a target audience, you need to talk in their language. But if it might be consumed by other people, you need to think about how you say it. There's not much room to maneuver in terms of what you get on the digital marketplace to be found. So how do you do that? It's quite difficult. Who will all in material be aimed at? As I said earlier, who else will read it? How can you accommodate them in just those tools you've got available? Functionality, cost, benefits, security, they might be read by different people. So different people. Ideally, the right person reads it, bang, I'm an IT specialist, I get your functionality, I'm gone, on to the next bit. But if there's a procurement specialist reading it, okay. So how do you help them? You can build your documents for multiple people types. You provide the detail they need when they need it. What you need to long list and what you need to be selected and awarded to is phenomenally different. You want to say, yes, I'm a a CRM, I have this function, I have that function, I have the other. But later on, you're saying, well, what happens if they don't understand it? I've given you the basic facts, but here, if you need to know some more about what that is and what it really means, go somewhere else to another part of the document. What about if I don't know what it means and why should I should be looking for something like that? Well, go and explain the benefits in a different section. There's ways of making your documents very interactive and active for the kind of buyer that's going to read it. And that's something we consider. It's a tool. It's basically your salesman in a box. If you haven't planned it right, it can fail you dramatically. If they have to wade through everything you've got just in order to find the key information, then I'm sorry, if somebody's done it better than you, you're in the bin. Think about it. What else can we do? We can provide information to help them buy. Well, how to search. You should know how to search the digital marketplace for your products. They won't always know, right? So if they found you by hook or by crook and they've come across you, a lot of them will be going, I'm lost. I don't know what I'm doing. If you can say, here's the common terms, this is what is important, yeah? What's important to consider here? Why they should need it, why it might need to be added to their evaluation criteria. They'll be thanking you. They'll be going, Christ, these people know exactly what I need. Right? Approaches for selecting and why. We've heard there's lowest price on meat, most economically advantageous tender. Well, if you're not the lowest price, but you think your service management or your non-functional ability to connect to other systems adds massive value that they haven't considered, you might say, I think meat's the best route because of this. This is the value we can add above and beyond other people. They might not have considered it. You still have a chance to influence them by the materials you provide. Anticipate their journeys. You need to explain to them how you understand those journeys, what their options are, how you can take them along it, how they can proceed, find something out, stop, drop it. Cheap ways of failing, or maybe parking it for another 6 months while they do some remediation activities to take them to the next level. But how you can help them, how you have the skills, what you've done before. You can do that through the suite of services you have. The digital marketplace thinks very much in terms of individual services. For me, that's not how IT is done. Complementary offerings that go together to form this whole solution. Your experience and successes. You haven't got much room to do it. Each document's only 5 megabytes in size, but you've got to think, what can I put in there that tells them I'm the right person for the job? Use the new language. We're talking about outcomes and services here. We're not talking about people, boxes, or licenses. But don't forget now, the people who you're talking to, they may still be talking that old language. They might say, I need a person for, BA for six months. Well, no, you don't. You just need the right team in place for this length of time in order to prove that this project needs to go to the next phase. You shape them. You tell them how they can approach their projects in this new way of doing things. It's really important. So how else can you help them? Align with what they do. It may sound stupid, but cut and paste material. They'll be building evidence from what they find. You provide documents, they look great, they're fantastic, but that person is trying to take away your functionality, your pricing, your non-functional stuff, your service management, and they're trying to drop it into probably their own spreadsheet, their own documents that evaluate so they can compare. They want to make sure that they're not caught out and saying you didn't evaluate properly. Maybe you've done it really nice, but why not put an appendix? Here's it in a nice cut and pastable format. All of a sudden, you've helped them. You've made it much easier. If your other supplier, if the competitors haven't done it, bang, they are feeling good about you because you understand their journey and you understand the pain they have to go through in order to do this properly. Cost estimation. There's no negotiation. Oh, what does that mean? It means you have to use good cost models. How do I discount for different people from different areas, for different lengths of time, for different combination of services they might buy? Your costing models have to allow that to happen. It can get quite complex. Give them samples. Give them a tool to work it out themselves. You might not be the cheapest over a 3-month period, but what happens if it's 6 months or 12 months? They might be weighing this up in their evaluations. Make sure you've helped them as much as you possibly can. Contract effectively. Have samples of your common engagements. Most of them is brand new to them. You've seen how many buyers have bought. There's a massive swell of these 32,000 organizations are on their way. Make sure you're helping them. Give them those samples so they can understand, oh, so I might need a bit of integration or migration expertise on my journey. I can put it on my order form, but if I need it, it's there. If I don't, I've got to procure again. Think about them in a journey. Help them on their way. This pay-as-you-go and utility model is vitally important for them to understand this. I might not need it for 6 months, but it's on my contract. I can take it up when I need it. I can park it when I'm done with it. Technically, we can do things as well. G-Cloud allows you to focus on your strengths and help you avoid those awkward engagements where you're doing something that's a little bit out of your comfort zone. So we can partner. We can partner to enhance our services, an SMS plugin, a BI, a business intelligence plugin that makes our service, take the data out of our service and makes it really useful to them. Tell them you've partnered. Tell them you've got those added services. Partner to deliver end-to-end services. Maybe you only deliver 80% of what they need. But you might be able to say, hold on a minute, I partner with these other people that deliver the end-to-end process. They'd rather know that. Instead of throwing you out, they say, yep, I get you. I don't have to have one supplier doing it. I can get the best suppliers for the best parts. There's a whole new way of approaching this. But at the end of it, there's collaboration. Multi-vendor environments mean collaboration. It means you're going to have to acknowledge it, accommodate it. If it gets expensive, make sure you've costed it in your service offerings. It's not free, and the last thing you want is going, I don't want to do that because it's just taken 10 grand out of my profit margin. You've got to think about these things. We understand we've got to do it, but why not tell them where you may have to collaborate? They might not even know it's coming. All the way you've anticipated their needs and their requirements. The feeling they've got about you as a supplier who's embraced this and understood this is far, far greater than somebody else who's just gone, here's my stuff, help yourself. Encourage choice. So in the future, when they've got all these different services, all these SaaS products, they might want their own identity management systems and plug in their own monitoring systems and their own logging and service desk plugins. Can your systems do that now? Or maybe it needs to be on your strategic direction so that in the future, in a couple of years' time, they can pick and mix the services they need to meet them. You're just fitting in. That's the services of tomorrow, in my opinion. So what other tools you have? I've talked about the GDS ones, but you've also got your website, right? There's no limitations on what wording you use, no limitations on how you describe the suite of services. You can paint a picture of how you fit in this digital transformation or technical transformation world. But you can also target buyers in their own language. This is the health view of it. This is the education view of it. This is the local authority view of it. You can really take it to town, but be careful. Make sure there's nothing on there that's not involved, it's not on the digital marketplace that they might need in order to select you. If it's not on there, they can't consider you. But you can go to town on taking it to the next level. But also your marketing efforts. You know, whether it's LinkedIn, whether it's Twitter, whether it's the emails you send out, all of a sudden you're explaining it to them in their language. You can focus and explain how this one shot of the digital marketplace relates to them. It's not easy to do in a digital marketplace's tool. Your sales team, same again. The way they speak, the way they talk, it's got to be in line with how they contract in G-Cloud. They've got to be transforming the buyer's viewpoint and describing how you fit in their transformation over the next coming years. The final piece of the puzzle, be better than your competitors. Sounds obvious, but you do. You've got to manage your G-Cloud offerings. How is it maintained? How's the document set, the pricing, the companion materials? How do they interrelate? How often do they change? When? During framework changes, that takes a bit of planning. But your new products, your new security accreditations, what about your competitors? You might think, bang, I'm the cheapest. I've got it sorted. That was yesterday. What about tomorrow? You've lost business. You might have lost business for 3 months because you haven't been checking what's happening on this marketplace. It's a competitive marketplace. You've got to be competitive. Summarize it. What's better? You've got to describe your services, yeah? You've got to do it in their language for the people you really want to do business with. You've got to position your services. Is it entry level? Is it mid-level? Is it top of the range? Explain to them why it's in that position, why they should buy you. If 90% of the functionality in the top of the range marketplace is not in use by X amount of people, tell them. They might go, oh, but tell them you can take them on that journey. If they ever use up all the functionality you deliver, you've got migration services that can take them to the next level. Be the supplier that they need you to be. Price your services for every engagement, for every buyer. Make sure you're competitive across the entire range of ways you do business. Instill trust that you're the right supplier, you know the journeys they're on, and of course you're appropriately secure for their needs. Tony will hit that later on. That's the only reference I'll give to security because there's the man. Manage your services. You've got to look at it. You've got to stay on top of it to be competitive. You've got to promote your services. We'll be hearing about that later. G-Cloud's not a sit back, fire once and wait for the business. It can happen that way, but it's not your only way of doing business. Be involved. That's the final piece for me. You've got to be involved. Where's G-Cloud going? How do I share my experiences with other people? How can I shape the frameworks of tomorrow? Suppliers have a part to play. Suppliers have a role to play in G-Cloud growing. we're at the start of G-Cloud taking off. If I use an analogy of a wildebeest migration. This is 32,000 buying organizations on their way. We've got the front of it now. We've heard about the buyers that are coming, but the rest of them are coming. If we're not sharing our experiences, we're not saving the millions of pounds that are there by them not having to take on the same SES Lot 4 services about expertise. Those people should find that. Other people should be able to benefit from it. As a suppliers, we have a role to play in that, saying, look, we've done it before, come and do it with us. So Eurocloud, I'll say it once more time, we're trying to do this. Come and join us. We'll give you some more information. Thank you very much.
Okay, so thank you very much to Dave. And now we're going to hear from Tony. Security is the prime inhibitor to cloud adoption, both across private sector and public sector. It's the thing that always gets cited in the polls and the surveys and the studies. Tony is the person who's going to explain why we don't need to worry about this.
Thanks. I don't think I've even got slides, have I? No. Oh, I'm going to leave it. So, yeah, I haven't got any slides. Did send some, but apparently they didn't turn up. Pretty lost in the cloud. So, yes, I'm just going to explain a bit about what we've been doing around security for the G-Cloud program. I'm kind of constrained about what I can talk about and what I can't, because obviously the G-Cloud G6 is open at the moment. But I'm going to basically talk through the changes that we've made and the change in direction and approach around security. So previously, under all the previous iterations of the cloud framework, suppliers could put forward for what was called pan-government accreditation. When we looked at this, between the 17,000 services on G5 and the 78 services that had received pan-government accreditation, and the fact that each of those accreditations had taken between 12 and 14, sort of 10 to 14 months to go through the pan-government accreditation service, it wasn't very good. It was expensive, it was long-winded, it was complex, it was a significant overhead for SMEs. It was just not a good fit. So last year I was asked to come in and review the process. I went through and basically came up with, working with CSG, who are the computer security arm of the government, looked at different processes and out of that came the cloud security principles, which CSG have published, and they've been published for quite a long time now on gov.uk. And what we decided to do for G-Cloud 6 framework was to take use those cloud security principles. So one of the few things I want to get straight out is it's not a centralized compliance process. It's not a self-certifying process. What it is, under G-Cloud Framework 6, is a transparency exercise. The commercial side of G-Cloud always was, tell us what services, commoditized services you want to provide to government. And then unfortunately security went, and here's a load of flaming hoops you have to jump through. Not good. So what we've done is align the security aspect with the commercial aspect. So commercial says, tell us what you want to offer. Security is now, tell us what security you're doing. So like I said, there's no wrong answer. It's a transparency exercise. So for G6, as part of the service submission portal, there are 51 security questions. These have been distilled and defined out of the cloud security principles. There's 14 cloud security principles running from data location, protection in transit, governance frameworks, etc. Underneath each of those principles, there's a number of objectives. What we did is we distilled down into about 51 questions, the sort of information and questions that government organisations will want to know about your security. So if I was to take the first question, which was around data, principle one was protection of data in transit. The first question is, where is your data centre? Nice and easy. We have a set of predefined answers, because we have to keep the answers predefined, so enable filtering, searching, and other aspects. Plus also, you don't want marketing just filling it up with loads of waffle, to be honest. So the predefined answers to that particular question that suppliers can select from are UK, EU, US with Safe Harbour, other countries with data protection treaties, rest of the world. If your data centre doesn't fit within that selection, then maybe you should be talking to NASA or something. And the idea, all right, there's a little, to get the digital marketplace out for G6. At the moment, I believe you can only tick one, so tick the most appropriate. However, when it goes live, you'll be able to go in and update your security questions, and you'll be able to select all that apply. So if you have a data center in the UK and a data center in Europe, you'll be able to tick both. Out of those 51 questions, 11 of them are used as filters in search parameters. So, your government customers can go, okay, as part of my long listing, I've written I want hosting, lies, and I want hosting in the UK. So they can search in those parameters. So like I said, the idea is that you have those 51 questions, each has a preset of predefined answers you can select from, all that apply. And to support that, and those answers we call assertions, because you're required to truthfully, under the ITT, you're required to truthfully make those selections and answer those questions. And to support that, we have something called the supporting approach, which is fundamentally the type of evidence you're planning to use to support your assertion. So again, they're predefined. We have 6 different mechanisms of supporting approach. First one being supplier assertion, or service provider assertion, as we call it. That's basically you're saying, I've answered it, I have no proof, but trust me. Okay, not the best supporting evidence, but if that's what you've got, that's what you've got. Then it's contractual obligation, validation by third-party independent validation, third-party testing of implementation, surface design, and CSG assured component. That's the selection. So basically, I'll talk through. So the first one, like I said, service provider assertion. You're just stating, that's what you've stated, and that's all you've got. Contractual obligation, where your answer is within your contract terms or such like. The more interesting one that people tend to get interested in is the third-party validation of assertion. So that's where an independent third party has validated what you've stated is true. So you could use certification programs such as your ISO 27001, CSA STAR certification, government accreditation. As long as an independent third party has assessed and evaluated your security stance and has stated that what you've stated is true. Independent testing of implementation is basically where you've had pen testers or check pen testers have come in, have assessed that element. So one of the questions, for example, is around separation of tenancy or separation of customer data. You could say, okay, we've had it pen tested, you can't get between the tenants. So that's where you'd use that particular supporting evidence. Service design is when a third party has assured or looked at your design of the architectures, etc., and have signed off, provided some sort of report stating that it meets the requirements. And finally, CSG's assured component is where you've some element from one of these CSG schemes has been used. So if you've got using a piece of technology that's as your hypervisor layer that has been through the CSG CPA or CSG product assurance scheme, and therefore has a CSG tick in the box. You can, that's what you've used. That's your supporting evidence that you've implemented and used that. So this information, so that's the question, the assertion or the answer, and the supporting mechanism, supporting approach that you've selected, all that information will be on the digital marketplace as part of the service description. So when buyers are looking for services on digital marketplace, not only have they got the price, the 50 word box, the benefits, the features, they'll also have the answers and supporting mechanisms for the security. And this is to enable the buyers, instead of just choosing something based on price and then having complicated or protracted discussions with a supplier afterwards around security, that they can choose as part of their long listing and short listing process security choices can be in there. Like I said, if they want it in the UK, or if they don't want it in the UK, if they want it to be encrypted or not encrypted, etc. Now, like I said, there's no wrong answer. The idea is a transparency exercise. You know, if I was talking to a chap a couple of weeks back who worked for the Welsh Government, and he said he was looking to replace a very secure and expensive system which under a previous security regime had been restricted. I said, okay, what was the system looking after? He said, it basically tracked the number of fields of barley in it. And he couldn't understand why that was such a government security required and expensive system. So, you know, the idea is that if it's a system that has no value in its confidentiality, like, you know, how many sheep are in Wales, well, New Zealand government might want to know that, but no one else does. That doesn't need vast reams of top-end security. Whereas if it's a system that basically looks after reports around child abuse and social services, yes, that's going to need the security. But the idea is that the buying organisations should know the information that they're looking after and choose a pragmatic and proportional system with the pragmatic and proportional security involved. So, you know, if it is a system counting the number of sheep in Wales, it doesn't matter if it's hosted outside the UK. It probably doesn't matter that the communication with it needs to be encrypted. You know, it's up to the buying organisation. Whereas at the other end of the scale, yes, they need all those things. It has to be, normally through regulation or law in the UK, has to be encrypted, has to be protected. So the idea is that at the very early stages of the long listing, shortlisting, that basic security information is there. Now, to go along with that, because people have always raised the fact that, you know, ones of the suppliers have garnished the truth. Well, in the ITT, there's a requirement to truthfully complete the information. In fact, in one of the legal questions, you have to agree to complete the SSP, which the security questions are part of. So to back that up, once G6 will go live, there is an audit process, which will select sample audits across suppliers, where if you've stated for that service, we'll take a random supplier, select a service and say, okay, you've stated this around your security, show us the evidence. If that supplier's assertions are found to be incorrect, then they will be asked to update their information within a time window. And if they still either refuse or haven't updated their information, then the supplier can be removed from the framework. Okay, so the information around security has to be correct. Otherwise, potentially you can be removed from the framework. Any customers you do have would be informed, and you wouldn't be allowed to sell to government again. So it's very important that the security information is true and correct. Now, we all know security changes. You know, halfway through the lifespan of G6, you might upgrade your security, you might get a new certification. Well, because of that, after the G6 has gone live, the security information, you can log into the digital marketplace and you can update the security information at any time during the framework. So if you get a new cert, you know, you've got your new ISO, or you've got some other, some new information, you've had some new pen tests done, get it on there, get in there, update it to the very latest. So that means the customers have always got the latest information to select from when they're doing their purchase selections. Also means you're always up to date and you're not going to fall foul of the audit process. Coupled with the audit process, any buyers that find when they've been dealing with a supplier that the information is incorrect can report them into the G-Cloud team, and that will kick off an audit of that supplier. So it's very important. Get the information right, get it right at the time, and if any changes, go in and update. And in that way, it's always the latest information. You've always got the latest details. The buyers have always got the latest information on your service. And they can make those correct and proper choices. Coupled with that, we've got rid of impact levels. Don't write them into your descriptions. Don't put them in your titles. You probably will find that your CCS or somebody else will ask you to remove them. Impact levels no longer exist. They were phased out of government policy back in April. Same with that, there will no longer be a mechanism for putting or stating pan-government accreditation on the digital marketplace. Why? Because A, we don't do it anymore. B, even if you have got it at the moment, what is it? Well, it's just a third-party validation. So use it under there, same as any other governance structure. But you can't search for it anymore. You can't search for input levels anymore. And if you use that in your marketing material, A, you're breaking government policy. B, we'll stamp on any government departments asking for that. And there's a good chance you'll be asked to change that as part of the onboarding process. So I hope that's explained the approach that we've taken. We are working to dovetail this into other areas such as PSN and other parts of the government information assurance schemes. So, this is just a start, but, we are looking to align it all across in the other areas. And hopefully, our intention is to widen the market, provide a more level playing field. If you've got these accreditations, great, use them as part of your supporting approach. But if you haven't, don't worry. The idea is that, that people will still purchase you. They can look at your information that you've got, and hopefully it'll, expand the capabilities of buying organisations where it comes to security. I can take a few questions at the end as well, but I have to be really careful about what I can and can't answer.
Thank you.
Right.
Well, can I kick off with a quick question? Because I think you've answered, I think, in that one of the main criticisms about, or the main questions about the new approach, which is that you're telling the suppliers to mark their own homework, which is kind of what's happening. You are shifting the burden of risk responsibility back onto the buyer a bit more than previously.
Well, that was one of the great fallacies, actually. It was a myth. The buyers always had responsibility. The pan-government accreditors themselves never actually technically accredited it. Any of those certs, they were a recommendation into what's called PSARB, which was made up of all the buying organisations. The CIROs and senior information officers at the organisations actually always had responsibility. That never went, it never changed, they always did that. It was just, there was some information from the pan-government accreditors to say that they had assured a certain amount. Well, that's the same as CSA Star or ISOs or others. If they've been done properly, that's just an independent organisation assuring what you've done. So, those buying organisations always did have to do that stuff. It was always a fallacy that it was removed from them.
Questions? Lots of questions. It's security.
Hi. It seems to be, from a vendor point of view, a continually moving playing field, if you like, and there seems to be a lot of either misinformation or inconsistent information. Particularly data must be secured inside the borders of Shropshire through to EU and that sort of things. And then even with base level, when I say base level, regularly recognised accreditations such as 27001, we now move on to things like Cyber Essentials, which come in from left field and start adding, with all due respect, extra onus on the suppliers, and there doesn't seem to be a consistency there. Sorry?
G-Cloud, any suppliers in G-Cloud certainly go through the G-Cloud process are exempt from the Cyber Essentials program. If you go through a different framework, fair enough, they may ask you to do Cyber Essentials, but G-Cloud is exempt. Why? We do more security. In regards to the shifting thing, actually, it hasn't really shifted per se. The policy was changed back in April, government policy around the security classifications. It hasn't changed since April. The security classifications were pre-published about a year before April. So what tends to be is interpretation by people who don't quite know what they're talking about normally. That's the unfortunate. It's not that we keep changing it. Yes, this is a change. And April, which was the lead into what we've done with G-Cloud, was a change. Prior to that, it hadn't changed for about 6-7 years. And what we're doing now will continue forward. So from an IA government point of view, we've had one change. It's people's interpretations, unfortunately, which has been variable. and we are doing a lot to try and change that culture and put awareness programs and education programs with the buyers. But you can lead a horse to water; it still may step in the bucket.
Hi. Hopefully you can answer this given the current procurement stage, but I'm really pleased to hear that you can update the security details once they're on the site. Will we be able to upload updated service descriptions where perhaps they provide the information that backs up our assertions?
No, and as far as I'm aware, the documents you upload can't be changed. I believe you can request if there is a significant change and a good business reason why. Say you stated you've used a sub-supplier or something, subcontractor for an element, and that has changed. I believe you can send in the documents to CCS. They will review it to make sure there's no fundamental change to the service, and then if they approve it, then they'll make the change, but you can't just send it in when you're making changes. I would suggest that if you're doing additional information to support your security questions, perhaps to, as Dave said, you could put it on like additional information on your own website and publish, and then put pointers out to it. But no, the service description documents themselves cannot be changed without a very good business reason.
Can you inherit the independent verifications from your subcontractors? For example, if you're using an IaaS provider as a SaaS provider, and they've had some sort of independent penetration testing of their systems?
Yeah, I mean, if you're a software as a service provider, you're responsible for the entire stack all the way down. It doesn't matter if you're using a third party as your IaaS, you're responsible for that service through the whole stack. Software as a service is the whole stack. It's not just the bit at the top, otherwise you would just be an application provider, which means you shouldn't be on G-Cloud. So if you're providing software as a service, then yeah, you are responsible. So you should, if you're using a third party to provide your infrastructure or your platform, then you need to get the information from them, and you still have to answer those questions within the framework because you're responsible for it.
And you can use their certifications that they've got?
Yeah, because if you're using their system certified, then you get to use it.